What's up guys, Justin here with the renderingessentials.com, back with another SketchUp and Enscape tutorial for you. So in today's video I wanted to talk about an extension that can help you really quickly create realistic looking vegetation using the Enscape assets inside of Enscape. So let's go ahead and just jump into it. Alright, so first off, model credit for this model goes to The School by Max Achofsky. So you can just search for Max Achofsky in here and you can look for the model marked School. And there's actually a couple different ones in here. In particular, I'm using this one right here. You can download this and follow along if you want to. So I haven't really made any changes to this. I wanted to show you a way to make your vegetation look a little bit more realistic inside of Enscape. So a lot of the time what happens, and I have hidden all of the vegetation that was in this model so that we can just kind of test this in Enscape with their vegetation instead. So a lot of the time what happens is Enscape has this really powerful asset library. We've got a bunch of different kinds of assets, and so you can bring these in really quickly, and they'll come in as proxy models inside of SketchUp, and then if you make copies of them, so let's say I was to minimize this and use the move tool in copy mode, you can bring in a bunch of different bushes and a bunch of different vegetation really quickly. But the problem with this is when you go in and look in your rendering, if we kind of zoom in on this, this all looks very uniform, which is not very realistic because plants don't necessarily grow facing the exact same direction and the exact same size and other things like that. So there's not really a way to randomize this placement right now. However, there's a really easy way to do this using a SketchUp extension. So this is an older extension, but it's still working with my 2019 version. It's called Scale and Rotate Multiple. And so you can download this extension from the Sketchucation extension store. I will link to it in the notes down below as well. But basically what it does is it takes a selection of groups and it randomly scales and rotates them. So let's say, for example, that I had placed all of these different bush proxies in here. Well, if you remember, if I change the size of these proxies inside of SketchUp, you can see how they change inside of Enscape as well. So when I do this, you can see how if I change one of these, it'll change in here, but I don't really want to go through and randomly rotate and scale them all individually. What we can do instead, though, is if we select all of them and we use this extension, which is going to show up under Chris Fulmer Tools and Extensions once you install it, it's got an option in here to scale and rotate randomly. And so what that's going to allow you to do is that allows you to set a minimum and maximum scale factor and a minimum maximum rotation. So let's say you wanted these to be the same size, but you wanted them to be rotated. You could set your minimum scale factor to 1 and your max to 1, and then you could set your rotation to minimum 0, maximum 360. Well, what that would do is that would come in here and that would rotate all of these randomly, each one by a different value. And so now you can see how your plants, even though they're still aligned, they're not exactly the same, and your rendering looks a lot more realistic. Well, in the same way, and we'll come back in here and we'll undo this, if you were to take all of these and scale and rotate multiple, you could also set a very small minimum and maximum scale factor. So you could set these all so that they scale from 0.9 to 1.1 and then set your rotation to 360 and click on OK. Well, now these are all still in a line, but they're not exactly the same size either. So instead of this looking like a rendered image with everything being exactly the same size, you can use this to add a little bit of variation really quickly without having to make a whole bunch of other changes to make your vegetation look realistic. And so you could also do this with something like trees. So let's say you wanted to bring in tree assets from the vegetation library. So let's say you were to select trees here, and let's go with one of these Evermotion elms. The Evermotion trees are they're pretty realistic. So let's say that we were to add trees in all of these different planting beds, maybe had some random trees, maybe over here, something like this. So if we were to go back into Enscape and look at these the thing that you're going to notice is they're all facing exactly the same direction, and they look exactly the same, which isn't really super realistic in real life because trees obviously have different heights and other things like that. So you can see how you've got kind of this straight line across here where these are all aligned. Well, you want to add a little bit of variation in here. And so the way that you could do this, and probably the easiest way to do it, would be to select them all in the outliner. So you could select all of your elms like this, and then you could use the scale and rotate multiple in order to randomly scale those. And for this one, you can have a little bit more variation. You don't want a ton of variation because you don't want super giant trees and super small trees. But let's say we were to set our minimum to 0.8, our maximum to 1.2, and again, we'll just set our rotation to 360. Now if I click on OK, what that's going to do is that's going to come in here and that's going to randomize all of these. And so now, if you look inside of your Enscape rendering, your trees are all slightly different heights and different sizes, which is much more realistic than if you were to just have these all in here uniformly. And this can save you a ton of time because you don't have to go through and do this by hand. You can just let the extension do it for you. So I don't usually do extension stuff on this channel. I usually save that for my SketchUp channel, but in this case it fits so perfectly with what Enscape does that I thought it was worth making a video just to show you how to randomize that vegetation to make everything look more realistic. But leave a comment below, let me know what you thought. Did you like this video? Would you like to see more things like this on this channel? I just love having that conversation with you guys. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button down below. If you're new around here, remember to click that subscribe button for new rendering content every week. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.